Welcome back to the Fantasy Pros Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Bogman. Follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. As always, I am joined by Pat Fitzmaurice at Fitz_FF on the Twitter machine. Fitzy, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing well, Boggs. Looking forward to, you know how I have a wide receiver fetish, so I'm really excited about today's show when we're going to talk about our wide receiver rankings, and we have a great guest to do it with.
Yes, Alfredo Brown at the Pretend GM of Football Guys. Alfredo, first time having you on the show. Happy to have you here and happy to talk some wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I did not think that 30 seconds into the show I'd be hearing about Pat's fetishes, but here we are. I'm excited to get into the wide receivers as well.
That's what we're all about. We're all about fetishes on this show. No, obviously we are about the wide receiver talk. We've done quarterbacks and running backs the last couple of weeks. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the top 36 ranked wide receivers on Fantasy Pros ECR and see how we compare to not just against ECR, but also ranking against each other. And I was so jazzed up to have these big arguments and debates about the wide receivers and try to explain my position on some of them. And when we did the top 36 in ECR, I know, Alfredo, this is not your favorite stat, but you were 36 for 36. Your top 36 wide receivers were the same 36 ranked in ECR on Fantasy Pros. Fitz and I are both 34 of 36. So yeah, maybe we have these guys ranked different, but in terms of tiers, we're kind of all the same. So we might be kind of battling into the wind a little bit here. What are the immediate feelings when you hear your 36
first of all,
for 36?
I cannot be contained, right? Like as I told you before the show, I am the bad boy of dynasty football. You can't stop me from coloring outside the lines here. But honestly, man, I think that it's crazy. And what I was telling you before is that dynasty theory and the way people build their rosters is just always so different. So I'm shocked that we, as the three of us, have so many players all within the same ECR. That's just nuts to me, to be honest.
Yeah, Fitz, when you see that, and it's, because there seems to be different prevailing opinions specifically on wide receivers. Sure, there's a little difference in quarterbacks and running backs, but I feel like we're closer in those. But 34 of 36 and 36 of 36 for all three of us seems almost like an impossibility.
It does. But I don't want listeners to think this is going to be a boring show where, we all just agree with everything each other says, because there are definitely with some individual players, there are some wide ranges of opinions. So we are going to drill down on some of those and hopefully argue a little, because that's always fun.
Oh yeah, we got plenty that that we have ranked outside of the top 12 that are inside, and I'm way different, of course. Like Alfredo said, just in dynasty theory and the way you do things, everyone's different. I have lost so much money investing into early dynasty leagues and then not getting to play it out. So I want to win quick. So I do 3-year window. After that, I'll rebuild. So my rankings are way different. So we are definitely going to fight a bunch. But I was just surprised to see that, three different minds. We all probably do things a little bit different, but the good wide receivers are the good wide receivers. And we know that. It's just where you have them ranked inside the top 36. So what do you guys say? Should we jump into the wide receiver number ones to start?
Can I first say what a pessimist you are, Boggs, that you're playing under the assumption that all your dynasty teams are going to fold all your leagues are going to fold in the first 3 years. Whereas, I'm altruistic and think that I'm going to be willing my dynasty teams to my son on my deathbed.
Yeah, you call it pessimistic. I call it experienced is what I call it. And look, dynasty leagues with industry people are different, because that team is going to exist whether you have it or not for a while. But I'm talking about the listeners, the listeners and getting the dynasty leagues together is just a little tougher. That's all. If I know that my league is going to last a little bit longer, because it's people that I played with now for 20 years, then yeah, I'll lean a little more towards, going after some longer term projects and stuff like that. And also my strategy will not forbid me from taking long-term projects and that type of stuff. But in most cases, I have a hard time passing up Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams for guys that maybe will get there someday because I know what those guys are. So, it's just a little different for everyone. But we are about to dive in to the wide receiver ones. Before we do, let me tell you guys about Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to see what all the buzz in the dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated. It is not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is a platform to test your mettle. If you're still not sure, you can test out your general manager skills for FREE in a mock. If you like what you see, use the promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. All right, gentlemen, let's jump into wide receiver number ones here. And number 1 down to 12 is this order. Number 1, Justin Jefferson, consensus. Number 2, Ja'Marr Chase, consensus. Number 3, CeeDee Lamb, consensus. Those are your top 3 for ECR and for all of us in that order. No change there. Moving down to 4 is AJ Brown, not consensus. Garrett Wilson is 5. Jaylen Waddle is 6. Amon-Ra St. Brown is 7. Chris Olave at 8. Tyreek Hill at 9. Stephon Diggs at 10. Devontae Smith at 11. And T. Higgins at number 12. A couple notes on these top ones, and let's just go ahead and start with those top 3. We all have the same top 3, Alfredo. Are you upset if you see Ja'Marr Chase ranked ahead of Justin Jefferson, or if you see CeeDee Lamb ahead of either one of those guys? Is that a crazy take if someone does that? Or is it just, hey, look, we know what we got in these 3 guys. This is the top tier. However you change them, whatever. But these are our top 3
If we're talking about the tier, yes, those 3 guys should all be in that tier, right? I mean, honestly, there's a pretty good argument to be made that it's just Jefferson and Chase in their own tier alone, or even just Jefferson in his own tier. So I don't think it's too crazy to have them all in the same tier, but I think you kind of have to stay strong with Justin Jefferson being there at 1. The only argument I've heard for putting Ja'Marr Chase over him is people believing that there's going to be an even greater touchdown regression where he's going to continue to get even more and more, and Justin Jefferson might slow down with Jordan Addison, where when you have to put that many ifs into how you're valuing a player, it's like, what else does Justin Jefferson have to do to be considered the number 1 wide receiver in Dynasty at just 24 years old? So I'm pretty comfortable with the way it is. I don't think CeeDee Lamb should be necessarily in the same grouping as those 2 top guys.
I agree with that. I think it is a tier of 2 of Jefferson and Chase, and then it's CeeDee Lamb in his own tier, and then kind of everybody else. It kind of opens up after number 3 fits. Is it the same way for you in that regard? Would it be Jefferson, Chase, Lamb, or do you see an argument of Lamb maybe going into that tier?
No, I think it's the big 2. And I don't have an issue with anyone who wants to put Chase ahead of Jefferson. He does have a better quarterback. There's no denying Joe Burrow is a better QB than Kirk Cousins. And maybe T. Higgins disappears after this coming season. And then, the targets spike even a little bit higher for Ja'Marr Chase. But, I have Jefferson ahead of Chase, but I do consider it basically neck and neck, photo finish.
I agree with that. I think that's probably the way it is. Now, we did all have a different number 4, but I think Alfredo, you told me there was something with the rank. So you actually have AJ Brown at 4, right? And not Amon-Ra St. Brown.
So
is that correct?
When you kind of fiddle it around, so our rankings kind of adjust on our website based on the projections for the entire team that's there. So when you switch from half PPR to PPR, but you know what? As I started to look into it, Boggs, initially what it has here in the rankings is Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver 4. And the more I started to dive into it, I was like, you know what? I don't hate that. At first I was like, no, I can't put that. And I was just like, let me dive into this a bit more. And I loved it. I really did. You talk about how the theory of Dynasty, right, is so different from one person to the next. And I'm a little bit more optimistic than you. I don't think that the leagues are always just going to, like fizzle out like that. So I really want to get a lot of those safe players when I'm doing, early on in my roster build. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has just been that guy because of the target volume that he gets. You look back at last year and, even going back to 2021, his games, he had 8 or more targets in 86% of his games since week 13, and then 10 or more targets in 64% of his games since week 13 of last season. So it's a guy that you don't look at a lot of these wide receivers and just see automatic target volume, right? And I've got him kind of in that same area as AJ Brown, Jaylen Waddle, and I don't think that we know for sure what those guys really are yet. I know that they're both playmakers. Jaylen Waddle has shown us 2 different versions of himself from year 1 to year 2. And as a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, I still don't know what he is. Year 1, he was a big volume guy.
Yeah.
And in year 2, he was a high efficiency guy. AJ Brown, I looked like the biggest idiot in the world last offseason saying that, I'm selling AJ Brown at his current ADP, yada, 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 because, he's going to have career highs in targets and catches and yards and touchdowns and stay healthy for all 17 games. And then he went and did that and just made me look foolish. So, man, you can almost make the argument that he might be at his production peak and on the way down. So I think it kind of goes back to that dynasty game theory. How are you building that roster? I like to stick with the safe guys. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got that skill set that ages well. He's a good route runner. He's not one of those guys that's going to have to rely on speed or size. He's just going to continuously be the high volume guy. And that's why I sort of lean in that direction.
Yeah, and look, that's fair. I'm higher than ECR, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is ECR 7. I am at 6. Fitz, you're right on ECR for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you have AJ Brown at number 4. Would you put him in the same tier as Lamb, or would you say Lamb is his own tier, and then you go down to 4, 5, and 6, and whoever else?
I would say he would be in the same tier with Lamb.
Okay.
Like a clear cut. I don't really debate those guys too much, but I do think they're pretty close. And then for me, it's Waddle, Wilson, and St. Brown in the next tier. And like I don't have any issue with where Alfredo has St. Brown. But I guess the reason I like Waddle a little more than Wilson and St. Brown was it gets to what Alfredo was just talking about, with the 2 variations we've seen of Jaylen Waddle in his first 2 years in the league. I love that he's been versatile, that he almost played sort of that early career Jarvis Landry role in his rookie year as a short area receiver, heavy target guy. Then Tyreek Hill shows up. Mike McDaniel stretches the passing game, and he's like this vertical home run guy. And like the arrival of Tyreek didn't put a dent in his production at all. So I love that he has thrived under 2 very different usage patterns, I guess. The difference in his average depth of target was pretty extreme from year to year. So I think he's just going to be sort of immune to changes in his ecosystem and just thrive no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Waddle can do it all. I really do like him. And he is definitely, to me, he's definitely the guy he was last year, because that's also what he was at Alabama. But I was so impressed with what he did his rookie season as like that number 1 target getter, the taking those balls in the short area and then doing damage with them as well. Like, this guy could do it all. So I love Jaylen Waddle. I'm with both you guys in terms of that. Now, look, there's a guy that we're all below ECR on, and it kind of makes me a little queasy. I think mine can be explained away a little bit better, just because I am taking Tyreek Hill as my 4. I'm working in that shorter window. So if I get 2 more years out of guys like Diggs and Kupp and Adams and stuff like that, that is in my mindset of wide receivers in really all positions, because I work in that shorter window, right? I trust in myself enough. I watch enough college football and things like that to know I feel like I can rebuild my team after that 3rd, 4th season, when my guys do start to kind of come back down to earth or age out or that kind of thing. So for me, but we're all below on Garrett Wilson, and I am the lowest. I have him at 10. Currently he's ECR is 5. Alfredo, you have him at 7. Pat, you have him at 6. So I think the hyperbolic question here, Alfredo, is why do you hate Garrett Wilson so much? What did he do to you?
You know what? I think that so much of what we look at in this offseason, and it's actually kind of reassuring to see that we're all a little bit lower because it made me feel like, okay, maybe I'm not that crazy, is I think there's a lot of that offensive rookie of the year cologne on Garrett Wilson right now when there were a lot of extenuating circumstances that happened. Breece Hall getting hurt and Kenan Walker kind of slowing down towards the end of the season and Chris Olave slowing down at the end of the season. And what worries me the most about Garrett Wilson going forward is we kind of touched on this earlier with some of these other wide receivers, is that we simply just don't know the identity of this Jets offense. They're going from, I don't know what they were last year, to now Aaron Rodgers, who has a notoriously slow pace of play. So one, they're going to have less plays, less offensive snaps, a very good defense that could keep the Jets offense slow and wanting to keep the ball away from some of their division opponents, the Bills and Dolphins, with high-powered offenses. So they've got this loaded backfield, right, that has a ton of young guys, and Breece Hall, Izzy Abanikanda. They may even add Dalvin Cook. There's a rumor out there, right? And Wilson was great as a rookie. Like, I'm not arguing that or, his talent at all. He's super talented, and having him 1 or 2 spots lower than ECR is not crazy, but there's a split that I'm still curious to see because a lot of people there was a lot made out of how much better Garrett Wilson was with backup quarterbacks instead of Zach Wilson, but there was something else that through those first 7 weeks of the season when Breece Hall was active, that offense was very different, and Garrett Wilson scored just 10.2 PPR points per game. He was the wide receiver 46 on a points per game basis for those first 7 weeks. Granted, small sample size, different sampling sizes of quarterbacks with Joe Flacco and Zach Wilson, first 7 games of his career, but I think we're kind of like brushing those things aside because we're like, well, he was offensive rookie of the year, and that means he's really good. He is. But I think there needs to be a little bit more context and a little more nuance there when kind of looking at Garrett Wilson's long-term dynasty value.
Yeah, Fitzy, it's hard to see any downside to Garrett Wilson, even with what Alfredo just said. Like, we know they're going to pass more because they have Aaron Rodgers, right? And I think that is really probably the biggest piece to me that has raised his ECR. Yeah, maybe Aaron Rodgers is only there for a couple seasons, and if they win the Super Bowl this year, maybe he just walks off. You know what I mean? So it could just be a year or two of this good QB, but I think that is also pushing him way up, even in dynasty value. Even though Aaron Rodgers is my age, which is not great, for an NFL player. So what is it about Garrett Wilson that put you just slightly below ECR?
I mean, I hope it's not the Aaron Rodgers thing that's pushing him up. I hope people like him because he's young and good. Because I worry that with Aaron Rodgers there, and this Jets defense is one of the 3, 4, 5 best defenses in the NFL. We know that. And as Alfredo mentioned, Rodgers likes to play slow. I mean, when Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett were together in Green Bay, they were consistently one of the slowest paced offenses in the NFL. So you have got a team that's going to play at a slow pace offensively and is not going to be involved in a lot of shootouts because their defense is so good. So I don't know what that pass volume is going to look like, or that Rodgers is necessarily going to throw more than the collective Jets QBs did, the bizarre amalgam of Zach Wilson, Joe Flacco, and Mike White last year. I don't know that they're going to throw that much more in 2023.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with the Jets, but Garrett Wilson is an interesting one. And look, we all still have him as a wide receiver 1. He's great. We're just a little bit below the consensus. And I don't think that any of us are high man or low man on any player. So in terms of like the actual personal rankings, which is a good place to be. I feel like, a lot of time you don't want to be high man or low man. I'm maybe high man on Chris Godwin, who is not in this range, but I have him inside my wide receiver 1s. I have Kupp, Metcalf, and Godwin. Missing from Pat's wide receiver 1s are London and Kupp. And then Alfredo, I know you love this stat so much, so I'll just say it again: 12 for 12
oh boy.
on wide receiver 1.
Oh boy.
So how does that make you feel? It
makes me feel dangerous.
Yeah, we're gonna see a big update on Alfredo's port after this episode, I feel like. But yeah, I mean, Fitz, anything you want to say about London or Kupp before we move to the wide receiver 2s?
Yeah, so I do have London in wide receiver 1 range. Just love that he commanded such an enormous target share his rookie year. Maybe it dips a little with a healthy Pitts, but still it's Pitts and London who are going to dominate targets for the Falcons. And I know for now they've got a run-heavy offense and a shaky QB situation, but it will not be that way forevermore for Drake London, who also came into the league at a very young age. So I think he's got a long runway, and we've already seen him, start the liftoff process. Very encouraging rookie year for him, and I think it only gets better. Bugs, but you should.
For me,
go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was just going to invite you to, Alfredo and I are in lockstep with Olave at wide receiver 8. You've got him a wide receiver 16. What are your reservations there?
Yeah. Well, a little bit of the slowdown from last season, and he's a high ADOT guy. For me, I prefer guys not with so much lower ADOT. That's not good. You want the higher ADOT guys, right? But I do like a guy that can take a ball short and run with it. And, I just over him in that capacity. He was 6th in ADOT. He was 6th in yards per route run, which is one of my favorite stats. And this is why I have Tyreek Hill so high. Tyreek Hill just has a tool that is unteachable. His speed is unteachable. No one's catching up to him in speed. That's why I have him at 4, even though he is long in the tooth, a little bit older. He has that unteachable skill. Now, when that unteachable skill goes, sometimes there is a rapid decline on those guys, but I think Tyreek is one of those guys that's a little bit different. So I just, not quite my Derrick Henry take. I know I'm higher on Derrick Henry than everybody else is because I think he's just a complete freak of nature and will last longer than most people think and most running backs do because he's enormous. But in terms of Olave, last year he was 20th in total points. He was 20th in average points. That's a wide receiver too. And I have him 4 spots ahead of that. In targets, he was 20th. In receptions, he was 27th. In yards, he was 18th. In touchdowns, he only had 4. He was 42nd. That should get better, but he's also not a contested catch guy. 72nd overall among players with 50 targets in contested catches at 33.3%. So, he's a very good wide receiver, but he's not a complete wide receiver. And I feel like we're ranking him as that already. So that's why I'm a little bit lower on Olave. And, I don't think I'm low man on him either, but I am lower. I know I'm in the bottom third of Chris Olave. And I'll stay there. Look, obviously he can change that for me next year, but I think it's probably going to stick to the same. So we'll see what happens there. But are we ready to go to the wide receiver 2s, gentlemen?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Wide receiver 2s. 13 is Drake London. 14 is Cooper Kupp. 15, DK Metcalf. 16, Devontae. 17, JSN, our first rookie. 18, Chris Godwin. 19, DJ Moore. 20, Christian Watson. 21, Michael Pittman. Jerry Jeudy, 22. Debo, 23. And another rookie, Jordan Addison, finishes this range off. And we have the rainbow rank on 4 players where we have one person above ECR, one person at ECR, and one person below ECR. And that is Metcalf, Devontae Adams, 4. Drake London, DK Metcalf, Devontae Adams, and DJ Moore. So let's just start with the first one there, Fitz, and I'll go to you on this one because you are a high man on Drake London. You have him as a wide receiver 1. You have him at 10. I have him at 19. Alfredo has him exactly at ECR. He is one of our rainbow guys here. So what do you think about Drake London? What makes him a wide receiver 1 in your eyes?
Yeah, I'll let you guys go with this, but it was his target earning ability, as I just mentioned, why he's in my wide receiver 1 range. And I love the size. And I do think, as I noted before, the situation will not be like this. They're not going to be run heavy with a bad QB situation for the long haul. So this is definitely a future bet. I'm not betting on Drake London to finish inside wide receiver 1 range for 2023, but for the future, I love him as a dynasty asset. Long term, I think he's going to be fabulous.
Alfredo,
I really like London, and I wanted to be able to put him in that wide receiver 1 range, and that's kind of why I just put him 1 spot down. It's so much of it lends to what Pat was talking about. It's that ability to command targets, and I know a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, Kyle Pitts is going to come back. That's going to change it." There's a really interesting study that was done by JJ Zachariason, who's one of my friends. He's been on my show, and I loved this when I when I heard this from him. So this is where Drake London ranks amongst rookie wide receivers with 50 plus targets since 2011. Third in targets per route run, second in target share per game. Only rookie Odell Beckham was higher. Fifth in yards per team pass attempt. And that puts him alongside Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, and Odell Beckham Jr. That is pretty elite company to be around when we're talking about 3 of those guys are essentially in the ECR top 4 for Dynasty, and Odell Beckham had injuries derail everything. So yeah, I mean, there's so many of those peripheral numbers and metrics that just lend so well to seeing future success for Drake London. The only thing that worries me is what's that quarterback situation going to be like for the next couple of years, and can he still maintain high production regardless of who's under center?
Yeah, that's my main thing is the offense and how many targets are going to be there for him. He should be, if you stuck this guy in Kansas City, I mean, good
right.
Lord, he's top 5 probably, but they not only did they run more than any other team last year, they invested in the number 1 running back in the draft. So it looks like this is going to be just a run heavy team. So he could be the number 1, but Kyle Pitts could also be the number 1. I also question, if Desmond Ridder has a league average season, are we rolling with Ridder? Because then maybe the Falcons aren't in a position to get one of those good QBs. And is this how long is London going to have to play with below average QB play behind him? I think is a big question for me as well, which is why I'm lower on London overall, outside of all my window stuff, is that I have legit concerns about this offense moving forward. Alfredo, do you want to talk about either one of the other guys, Devontae Adams or DJ Moore, before we move on?
DJ Moore, I think, is the interesting one because I feel like that one has the widest range of opinions. We have seen this now happen. It's almost like a blueprint that we're seeing for the NFL and fantasy football in general, where, we see Josh Allen get himself Stephon Diggs, and now we see Jalen Hurts get himself AJ Brown. And now I think we kind of all want to just fit the square peg in the round hole and say, Justin Fields got DJ Moore. It's going to happen. And I think we're hoping for it, right? It makes for better football. That would be crazy if we get a 3 for 3, right? Where we get a quarterback that just dramatically improves on just the passing accuracy, a team that sort of changes the philosophy to more of a passing volume. The efficiency would kind of have to be off the charts for DJ Moore. And in the past, that's not always what it was. It wasn't touchdowns, it was volume. So I think that's going to be the most interesting one to watch for me. That's why I don't have a super strong opinion on DJ Moore, because these are intangible things that we can't really project. We are hoping that a player takes the leap, and that player is Justin Fields.
Yeah, and there's too much gray area for DJ Moore for me to rank him ahead of ECR here, Fitz. And what is your opinion on him? Because for me, it's too many little things stack up. It's what's this offense look like? Is Justin Fields going to take the next step? How long do we stick with Justin Fields if he doesn't take the next step? So long term, I just kind of find him on shaky ground, I guess, would be the way to describe DJ Moore.
Well, I think Fields is going to take the next step. I'm pretty confident in that. And I don't think the Bears are going to be so ridiculously run heavy as they were in 2022 when they ran 57% of the time. And, DJ Moore had 3 straight 1,100-yard receiving seasons with the Panthers, with bad QB play. Most of that with Sam Darnold. And, it took Baker Mayfield to actually destroy DJ Moore's production. So, yeah, I mean, I think this offense is going to be, I know the Bears will be run heavier than average, but I don't think they will be, 1950s NFL run heavy like they were last year. So, and Moore is clearly the alpha, and we know how he wins. Yeah. He is special after the catch. So I feel pretty good about Moore's career going forward. He's still young, and he's already booked 3 1,100-yard seasons. So this guy's already done it, and I still think his best season is ahead of him.
I just hope that the I hope the Bears don't step into this running QB thing like the Ravens did for Lamar, where it's just Lamar and Mark Andrews and like nobody else. I mean, running back, Dobbins was good. I just hope they don't like totally adjust there. But before we move on, before we get through the rest of the wide receiver rankings, let's pivot to a tool that will help you apply those rankings directly to your draft strategy. Have you checked out our mock draft simulator yet? It's a game changer. At Fantasy Pros, we understand that practice makes perfect, especially when it comes to drafting. So head over to fantasypros.com/draftwizard. That's fantasypros.com/draftwizard, or download the Draft Wizard app to complete mock drafts in minutes. It's fun, it's fast, it's free, and it's the best way to prepare for your draft. Remember, that's fantasypros.com/draftwizard. Get it today. All right, moving on in the wide receiver twos here. Let me write my battle here for Chris Godwin, right? Because I have him inside as a wide receiver 1. You guys both have him as a lower end wide receiver 2. And here's my thing with Chris Godwin. It's the last 3 previous years. He was injured a little bit in 2020. In 2021, he was 9th in points per game, 15th in total, wide receiver 1 on average. In 2019, he hit his peak. I don't know if he'll hit this again, but 2nd in points per game, 2nd in total. And yes, these were with much better quarterbacks than Baker Mayfield. And I completely understand that. This offense is going to change. This whole team is going to change without the GOAT there, whether it's Baker or it's Kyle Trask throwing the ball. But this is yet another guy that is, he can take those shallow crossers and make something out of them. He is a big create after the catch guy. He's a big yak player. And so to me, you're not relying on Tom Brady's pinpoint accuracy throwing deep balls to him all the time. This is a guy that's going to catch the ball short and go with it. So I think if you're looking for Baker Mayfield to make a throw, there's going to be a lot of little short dumps, or Kyle Trask to Chris Godwin. They don't have a great tight end. The running back situation is questionable. Rachaad White could have a lot of those receptions as well. But I just think we've seen Chris Godwin do it in the past. He's moved away from this injury and seems to be getting better. Yes, the quarterback takes a step back, but this is still a guy that is a very, very good wide receiver that creates by himself regardless of the QB situation. And I think he's still very, very good and has a lot of meat left on the bone there. I know people hate when I say that, but I love saying it. So Alfredo, your thoughts on Chris Godwin?
I like the player. Like, I really do. I'm just having a very hard time with Buccaneers players in general, because I feel like you can't really project a whole lot. You have to throw out everything almost, because it was so manipulated by Tom Brady. That's why I struggle with Rachaad White and seeing him get, the same sort of receiving share that he was before. Mike Evans has been like kind of trending downward too. So, I mean, if there is someone that I think can come out of this offense and still be productive for fantasy for the next few years, it's Chris Godwin. But man, things could get very, very bad in Tampa really quickly. And I don't think that's hyperbole either. Like, we have seen that almost at every single stop now where Baker has been for the last couple of years, it's just gone from bad to worse. And I think we had like a moment. We had like one game there where he was in the Rams. We're like, maybe he stays because he's doing pretty well. And then it just like, it kind of came crashing down pretty quickly. So, man, if we're getting to the point where it's Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask throughout the entire season, I have a hard time really having a lot of faith in Godwin. And then you have to ask, are they starting over? Are they tearing this down to the studs and having to start with a rookie quarterback? If it's Caleb Williams, then all the arrows start to point up a little bit differently. But for now, man, it's just so hard to see him as more than just a sort of a low-end wide receiver too.
Yeah, Fitz, your thoughts on Chris Godwin? Because these are all appropriate takes, and this is what we talk about. Everybody wants black and white answers, but there's gray area on every player, and that's kind of what that's where we're at with a lot of these guys, where we have the big differences in. And Chris Godwin, I agree with Alfredo. It is hard to know what you're going to get from Tampa Bay. So is that more about it? Is it Chris Godwin's injury history, or is it more of the offense that has him as a low-end wide receiver 2 for you? And you guys are closer to ECR than I am, by the way. I think it's 18, and you guys both have him at 22. And go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, like, terrific player. But, as I was just talking about with DJ Moore, we saw Baker Mayfield obliterate his numbers, and I worry that the same thing could happen to Godwin and Evans. But like, it's not entirely the QB situation, because I as I mentioned with Drake London, I always like to hope for a brighter future for wide receivers stuck with bad QBs or in run-heavy offenses. If they have youth on their side. Godwin doesn't really have youth on his side. I mean, he's like mid-prime to late prime of his career at age 27. And he has had an ACL injury now. So you wonder if that's going to maybe accelerate the age curve for him. And he's never been a prolific TD scorer, a steady TD scorer up until the last couple of years. But not an Evans type where double-digit touchdowns are the expectation. So like him a lot, but don't love him enough to put him in wide receiver 1 range.
And I think that's fair. I also obviously think my points are fair, but I think that's fair. I think people can have dissenting opinions and still understand where they're coming from here. Alfredo, you love JSN. You're a high man out of this group on him. ECR 17, you have him at 14. Pat's on your heels at 16. I'm a little more leery on rookies jumping in and having immediate impact, and I'm one spot higher on Addison than I am on JSN. But what is it about JSN that makes him close to a wide receiver 1?
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at a rookie that could have an immediate impact, let's take a look at that Seattle Seahawks offense that was so good, and then take a college prospect who had one of the best prospect profiles we've seen in quite some time, and let's just throw him in the middle of that. And listen, rookie wide receivers have been getting a lot more valuable as of late, whether it's been in redraft or dynasty, and they tend to really start to pick up steam as they get to the back end of their first year, their rookie season. We saw that with Garrett Wilson. But a lot of what I like about JSN's Jaxon Smith-Njigba's profile is that it kind of goes back to my thoughts on Amon-Ra St. Brown and guys like Keenan Allen, and even Chris Godwin to a certain degree. It's these guys that are good route runners. They last a long time. They're able to get open. They're able to command targets. They're not having to rely on athleticism time and time again. And, these strong route runners, it kind of puts them in a different conversation when we look at them for dynasty, because, you talk about the shades of gray, dude, dynasty rankings is 50 shades of gray. It's all over the place, man. It really is. It's the pinnacle of fantasy. It is the most fantasy of fantasy football, because we then start to talk ourselves into things that are happening 3, 4, 5 years down the line. But for me, the thing that that stood out recently when I was looking at this and ranking these players is our very own Matt Waldman over at Football Guys, who Matt is it's a legend, right? Matt's been doing this for a long time. And something that he pointed out, the Seahawks offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, he was hired from the Rams a couple of years ago, and he wanted to bring over that 3 wide receiver set offense to Seattle. And then what did the Seahawks do? They drafted D. Eskridge. It didn't work out. He had concussions, injuries, whatnot. Now they've invested highly in this uber talented, very productive slot wide receiver who, make no mistake, that's where he's going to go, to the slot. We've already talked that Tyler Lockett's going to move to the outside. That means you are putting, and we do this all the time where we compare one player to another veteran, but you're putting JSN in the Cooper Kupp role. And even as a rookie, Cooper Kupp was a fantasy wide receiver 2 in PPR, getting 94 targets with Jared Goff under center. And there was Todd Gurley on that team, and Sammy Watkins getting 8 touchdowns, and that offense was still thriving, and Kupp was able to perform. And that's what I see for Jaxon Smith-Njigba, that even in his rookie year, he can be a top 24 wide receiver. And as Tyler Lockett gets to be a little bit older, and as DK Metcalf kind of continues to be that guy that's making the big plays downfield, JSN becomes that just immediate target hog for this team. And I love the player. I love the landing spot. I think there's a good long-term outlook for him.
I love that comparison of Cooper Kupp because we had the same logic from our boy Joe Pisapia here at Fantasy Pros, talking about that before Justin Jefferson's great breakout with Kevin O'Connell coming over from the Rams to be the head coach of the Vikings. And we saw what that did for him. Is anything we missed on Jordan Addison, Fitzy? Because you're also high on him.
On JSN, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. You said Jordan Addison. Yeah. It's okay.
Did I? I'm sorry. I'm so excited about Jordan Addison.
No worries. Nothing to add to all the points Alfredo made, except I will say, though, the one thing that could really shake my confidence in JSN would be some sort of soft tissue injury in training camp after, he missed most of his last season at Ohio State with the soft tissue injury. Like I would probably drop him like 10 spots in my rankings if he pulled a hamstring in his first week of camp.
He would be looking like Treylon Burks last year, right? Everyone was super hyped on him. You go to Tennessee, he could be the number one. And then Mike Vrabel's calling him fat, and saying he's saying he has asthma and all of that stuff. That could be an easy derailment. I understand that. For me, it's more about, they drafted Charbonnet too. And are we going to get this same magic from Geno that we had last year, this year? I'm just not. Really, it's Geno I'm not sold on. And if Geno isn't as good, we've seen the Seahawks in the past go super run heavy and be the most run heavy team in the NFL before under Pete Carroll. And they drafted Charbonnet, so it's Walker and Charbonnet is a 1-2 punch. Lockett is still there. How many 3 wide receiver sets do they do? I know that's the thought process, but if the run is working, maybe we do that first. So I just, everything's, and I still have him as a wide receiver too. I'm not low on him. I'm just lower than you guys on JSN. Also, I'm a big DK Metcalf guy, and I think Metcalf hogs those touchdowns. But I mean, JSN can get open like nobody's business. We saw that at Ohio State, and he is a great player. We'll see if it translates to the NFL. Before we move on to wide receiver 3s here, if you guys want to win a free year of Fantasy Pros Premium 2, subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel and comment below on this video, because when you do, you could win a free FRW upgrade to Fantasy Pros Premium. Whether you're looking for custom mock drafts, salary cap tools, or in-depth analysis of your fantasy performance, Fantasy Pros Premium has the tools to help you win. Unlock the most powerful fantasy tools in the industry. Don't want to wait for the giveaway? Sign up today at fantasypros.com/premium and start playing smarter, not harder. All right, gentlemen, let's go to the wide receiver 3s here. And we start at number 25 with Brandon Aiyuk. We're all above ECR on him. Terry McLaurin is number 26, followed up by Treylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, Quentin Johnston at 29, Marquise Brown at 30, Jameson Williams at 31, Deontay Johnson at 32, Zay, George Pickens, Amari Cooper, and Christian Kirk finish us out 33 to 36. And a couple of interesting ones in this tier. We are all above ECR on Aiyuk and Jameson Williams. So Alfredo, I'll start with you on these 2 wide receivers. What is it you like about these guys that we're all above ECR?
I think sometimes you just have to look at players and just say he's really good at football. And that's it. Like, there's no fun stats. There's no, they're just really good. And Brandon Aiyuk, I don't think I'm out of line in saying he's a top 5 route runner in the NFL. And that's kind of been my theme when talking about good dynasty wide receivers is, are they good route runners? Right. And he can be used from all different parts of the field. His target volume seems to be quarterback proof at this point, whether it's Jimmy G or Brock Purdy or, anybody. Like, he's being used as a main weapon in that offense. He actually had 9 games of 7 or more targets last season, and a bunch of those came after the team acquired Christian McCaffrey. So I know there's some, overlapping things where maybe Debo wasn't there or George Kittle missed time. And that's the only thing that really has me putting Brandon Aiyuk a little bit lower, right? Is that there's so many weapons on this team and we still don't know who the quarterback is going to be. But if Brock Purdy is there, man, he seems to run that offense really, really well for Shanahan. But I honestly don't think it matters who the quarterback is going to be. I actually think I need to go and I need to move Brandon Aiyuk a little bit higher. I think I need to put him ahead of Michael Pittman, who I have at wide receiver 20, instead of having Aiyuk at 23. Because when you look at these, like the dynasty startup drafts, Aiyuk is going in the 5th round. And considering the talent, considering the situation, like, I'd almost rather kind of wait a little bit more and get a guy like Aiyuk in the 5th round than having to really spend up on a Garrett Wilson at the 1-2 turn, where you can make a lot of the same arguments one way or the other with these guys. And so Aiyuk, I think, is a great value there who could absolutely just skyrocket. And then Jameson Williams, dude, I thought I was the Jameson guy. Boggs, you are 100. Like, you are so much more than me right now on Jameson, and I am shocked. I can't wait to hear about that. But there's a lot of projection that we have to do. There's not a lot that we can go off of aside from projecting and his prospect profile. He was my rookie wide receiver 1 in that rookie class. And I think he was for a lot of college football analysts and draft analysts before he tore his ACL. The Lions traded up to go get him. He's highly valued, but he had such limited action. And I steal this from one of my co-hosts over at Football Guys. In such limited action, Dave Kluge, he tweeted this out. Jameson Williams, in his, I believe he had 3 or 4 touches, 41-yard touchdown reception, 40-yard end-around rushing play, 66-yard touchdown reception called back on a penalty. That's it. He is literally the most efficient player in football history. This is a guy that I think, man, all you can do right now is project. But if everything goes well for these two players, the sky is the limit for the two of them.
Yeah, I'll pass it to you, Fitzy, and then I'll break down kind of why I like Jameson so much. But Aiyuk and Jameson Williams, all three of us above ECR on. And look, just overall in the wide receivers, because when I put this list together, I went down to 75. I didn't just do 36 for all of us. And there are not many guys that we're all above or below consensus on. And these are two of them. So what is it about Aiyuk and Williams that you like?
Yeah, I mean, I like pretty much everything Alfredo said about Aiyuk. I think he is a terrific route runner. And other than that brief period where he landed in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse, he has been productive from the jump in the NFL. And yeah, there is some target competition, kind of an unstable QB situation. But I'm a big believer in the talent, and he still has youth on his side. Jameson, maybe I'm not quite as head over heels in love with him as you guys are, but yeah, like the explosiveness, the big playability, it's just so frustrating that just when we thought we were going to tap into that, he gets the 6-game gambling suspension. So no issues there. But Boggs, I do want to get into like our biggest disagreements on this tier, which is with a pair of second-year guys. And that's Jahan Dotson, who you hate for some reason. And, here's a small, fast receiver who's actually shown us something already, like shown us more than Jameson Williams has. And, I can explain my concerns about Pickens. And it's just that he's not a target earner, or at least he hasn't been a target earner yet. I mean, he didn't draw more than 8 targets in any game as a rookie and no more than 6 targets in any game, after the early part of the season, week 6 or something like that. And he doesn't do anything after the catch. I'm just worried. He really, other than the spectacular contested catch circus catches he's been making, he does have an acrobatic air to him, no question about that. But man, we need some more we can sink our teeth into here, Boggs. He's just not getting targets.
Look, all right, let me try to hit all of these here. Okay, number one, Jameson Williams is one of the best wide receivers I've ever watched coming out of college football. He is complete. He is explosive. He doesn't have to touch the ball a million times to have big plays, obviously, as Alfredo pointed out. And he is so good, and people are so down on him because of his limited production last year, coming off the injury, obviously, and then the suspension, I think, soured people. So I have him, I think in terms of talent, I could put him in that first round. I won't do that because we haven't seen anything yet. So a mid-tier wide receiver 2, I felt like was pretty good. I was shocked when I saw that he was a wide receiver 3 and kind of a middle end wide receiver 3 on ECR. I was surprised. I thought we're forgetting about what he did at the college level and playing in the SEC at Alabama against, high level SEC teams and corners that are in the NFL now. It wasn't like he was doing this in the G5 or something and look good. This isn't Dwayne Eskridge. This is a, guy that can be DeAndre Hopkins if he gets his head on straight and recovers from this knee surgery properly, right? This is something that Jameson Williams can do. That's why I love him. The second one, by the way, Fitz, I am closer to ECR on Dotson than you are. You're 8 spots ahead. I'm 7 spots below. I still have him as a wide receiver 3 as well, where he is an ECR, and you have him as a wide receiver 2. So I don't hate Dotson. You are in love with him, which is more than fine. And by the way, speaking of acrobatic catches, Jahan Dotson has one of the best college catches I've ever seen in my life. The one-handed one, I believe, against Ohio State was just unbelievable. Also, great. I mean, just go up and get the ball. Everything that you want out of Josh Downs this year and the way his profile looks in terms of contested catches and all that, you saw Jahan Dotson do at the pro level last year. So I do really like Jahan Dotson. I'm concerned about Sam Howell and the fact that they have 2 big running backs that they want to run all the time, and they've been connected to Kareem Hunt. And this is also Ron Rivera, old school, smash mouth style coach that loves to run the football first. So that is why I'm a little lower on consensus on Jahan Dotson. I do not hate him, Fitz. You love him, which is more than okay. Look, Pickens is a tough one because it's about Pickett to me. Pickens could be a big play like DK Metcalf type of dude. I feel like you'd have to put on weight to be DK Metcalf, obviously. But I think that is something he could progress towards in his career. I just don't know, like, how long is Matt Canada going to be the OC here? And if he is the OC in Pittsburgh, he just does not trust Kenny Pickett to throw the ball unless it's to Deontay Johnson, who we're all a little different on, by the way. But I think that Pickens, and we've gone round and round about Pickens here, Fitz, so we don't have to spend more time on it. But I think as the offense opens up, Pickens gets better. He demands more targets because of that. Now, the way that they built this team in the offseason, going and get Broderick Jones and, Darnell Washington, looks like they're going to run the ball a bunch again under Matt Canada. I just don't think Canada's long for that job, and they'll eventually open it up. And Kenny Pickett will gain more trust of the coaching staff, things like that. But Alfredo, your thoughts on Pickens? Are you in or out?
I'm still in, but I say that kind of like with there's so many of those caveats that you guys mentioned, and I don't think we need to beat a dead horse here, right? Like, we're all scared of Matt Canada. We're all scared of Kenny Pickett. We're all scared they're just going to run the ball forever. Man, Pickens, when I just look at him from a straight talent standpoint, the dude is incredibly talented. Where I think he needs to continue to develop is route running. He needs to get better at that. And that is something that I think that from just like a fantasy angle, like, we almost always just decide players cannot get better at things, right? Like, these are the stats. This is what happened last year. There's no way that changes, right? Like, yeah, actually it can. Like, they can get better at certain things. Now, typically, good route runners stay good route runners, bad route runners stay bad route runners. Where wide receivers tend to improve his hands, right? Pickett's already got the good hands, man. He's a good contested catch player. I think that the biggest factor here is going to be, can he earn those targets from Kenny Pickett, right? And what are Kenny Pickett's tendencies going to be? I don't think we've still seen what that is. He was running kind of a Mickey Mouse offense last year where it was run out to the right and throw it to the only wide receiver that's there, run out to the left and throw it to the only wide receiver that's there. And we haven't really seen what the NFL can look like for these guys. So, yeah, I'm still in, but I'm not that it on George Pickens.
And I completely understand that. Quickly here, we are all above ECR on a couple guys down below these wide receiver threes: Keenan Allen, JuJu, and Josh Downs. Fitzy, I'll start with you on these three. We're all above on those three. They're wildly different. Allen's at the end of his career, JuJu's in the middle, and Josh Downs is a rookie. So sell me on, I guess, out of that group, who do you think you'll have the most shares of?
Probably Downs. It's funny that I am above consensus on Keenan Allen, because I've sort of been resistant to Keenan Allen, even though he's like such a great route runner. Like, I've never been totally in love with him because he doesn't make a lot of big plays and doesn't score a lot of touchdowns, typically. Like, he is a volume guy. And like earlier in his career, I feel like the volume led to injuries because he was taking a lot of punishment. But, he is one of the best route runners of this generation. No question about it. And like, I just wonder, I don't know, maybe now that their offense is going to be a little bit less horizontal and a little more vertical, hopefully with Kellen Moore replacing Joe Lombardi, like, we get to see a higher level targets for Keenan Allen this year. So, he's not going to be around that much longer, but I feel like you can ride into the sunset with him pretty well. I'm surprised I'm above ECR on JuJu. I guess the thing is, it seems
by the
like
way, you guys are both like 2 spots ahead, and I'm like
sickening
15 spots. Yeah, 15 spots.
Yeah,
ahead.
you got to be the mouthpiece on JuJu here, Boggs, because I'm kind of ambivalent. Downs is just a prospect I like, who's going to be a solid slot receiver. But yeah, talk about JuJu. You got to be the one to carry the torch here.
Look, and I might lower JuJu because the thing that really is getting to me is Hopkins rumors and the knee thing not being completely healed, which you just learned about last week, which is shaking my faith in JuJu just a little bit, not being able to recover from another injury. But I just think that a lot of the JuJu hate is overkill. You know, I feel like, yes, he put up this monster season with Antonio Brown next to him, and he hasn't got back there. Yes, he's not that player. I accept that. I have him as a low-end wide receiver 3, and he's going to be the number 1 wideout in New England this year, as long as they don't sign Hopkins.
Wait,
he's going to be the number 1 target getter on that team. Yeah, don't even start with Devontae Parker.
They just drove up the Brinks truck to Devontae Parker's house, Boggs. How can you say that?
I will find a way to mute you, Fitz. Don't even start with Devontae Parker with me. So, look, yes, they rewarded Parker. Parker's part of their long-term plans or whatever, but Juju's going to be the guy. The short, easy throws are going to go to him from Mac Jones. We don't trust Mac Jones to throw the ball downfield. So Juju's going to get those easy catches over the middle, and he's going to score touchdowns. He's just, I don't even think he's great, but I think he's good and he's fine. And he's a 100 catch guy moving forward. That's a wide receiver 3. You know, I think that is what we should be looking for him, as long as he's not hurt moving forward. So that's why I'm still in on Juju. Yeah. I just think the hate has gone a little too far because he's not what we expected when everyone was putting him in the top 5 after that huge year with Antonio Brown. He let us down. And now it's the overcorrection, which we see from everyone. Yes, I'm a Steelers fan. Yes, I'm a homer, but I'm not that big a homer. I've said this a million times. I'll always love Juju for knocking out perfect. Like, that is, you know, I'll always love him for that. Maybe that is still living in my heart a little bit. So understand that when you're looking at my rankings, and roll your eyes at Juju and move on. But I still do like him. We are all, there's one guy that we're all lower on here, and it's Mike Williams. It's the guy on the other side of Keenan Allen. So, Alfredo, we all hate Mike Williams, apparently. Is this the right take?
I mean, I don't want to ever say that it's the right take to hate a player, so I'm going to rephrase it. I think that we are all fine being a below ECR on Mike Williams. The thing for me is it's kind of twofold. One, it's what have you done for me lately, which has not been much. He's got one finish as a top 30 wide receiver in the last 4 seasons, even if you adjust for half PPR, which a guy with his skill set should be better at, and he's just not there. I think the addition of Quentin Johnston kind of muddies the waters for him a little bit. Gerald Everett, I think, is actually one of the most underrated tight ends in the fantasy landscape right now, especially in Kellen Moore's offense. And we talk about that. You talked about that switch, Boggs, for or maybe it was you, Pat, talking about how the Chargers are going to be a bit more of a vertical team this year. That still lends itself to a lot of targets for that slot in Keenan Allen. We saw what it's done for CeeDee Lamb over the years, and Lamb having 150 plus targets last year. So I think that this offense is just going to keep lending itself to more Keenan Allen. Now the newly drafted Quentin Johnston, some Gerald Everett, Austin Eckler still going to be very heavily involved. I can't bring myself to ever be like, ooh, Mike Williams on the board. Let me get some of that. I almost kind of keep him there as a default because he's talented and on a good offense. And if someone gets hurt, then, you're looking at a guy that can produce.
Yeah, if you want a guy that's going to be questionable for 10 years, 10 weeks out of the year, then Mike Williams is your guy. Fitz and I have talked about Mike Williams a bunch, so we don't need to add on to that. But Fitz, I'll ask you this, and I'll come back to you, Alfredo, to end it for us. Any other wide receivers that you either want to campaign for, you want to warn people about, anyone that we didn't get to before we go?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lower on Marquise Brown. I just everyone's going to be excited that he is going to be seemingly the alpha receiver. But it's going to be in a terrible offense. He's already been super inefficient in his career, like 7.2 yards per target or something, like 1.6 something yards per route run. He's given us one season with more than 800 yards in 4 years. He's smaller, so I think there's a bit more injury risk there. And it's just going to be a dumpster fire of an offense. I'm not into Marquise Brown at all. So I have him on 0 dynasty team.
That's why Fitz and I are friends. He uses his minute to crap on an Oklahoma player. I love it. Alfredo, any other wide receiver that you want to, give the used car salesman pitch for? Anyone you want to?
It would have been Jameson Williams, man, but we really got into our bag on that one. So I'm gonna talk about a guy that I recently looked at on my show, talking about guys with crazy upside or scary downside. And for me, it's Christian Watson. who, after looking a bit more into his profile, I'm actually starting to get higher and higher on Christian Watson. I need to move him up a bit. We already know he's an elite level athlete, and there is a legitimate chance that Jordan Love could be better for Watson than Rodgers was in 2022. Rodgers really was not that good, and we all know that from weeks 10 to 17, Christian Watson was really good. He was a wide receiver 9 in fantasy points per game, targeted on 24% of his routes, and they were valuable targets, right? It was a bit more downfield. He was 11th in yards per route run at 2.26. So it's not just that he was getting targeted. It's not just that he was scoring touchdowns, but he was doing it in a way that was actually a bit more valuable. And when you look at all the other wide receivers that are getting that kind of, let's call it that kind of target share with that sort of route depth, it's all these guys like Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Jaylen Waddle, Devontae. Like, it's all the big names in fantasy football. And Christian Watson was number 11 last year on that list. So yeah, I'm still very high on Christian Watson, and I kind of like that you can get him at a discount because everyone is worried about Jordan Love and the rookies that they drafted.
For me, it's John Metchie. John Metchie I have as my last wide receiver 4 because I just didn't want to make him a wide receiver 5. I'm way higher than most people are on him. He's almost free. You can scoop him up real late. He's the best wide receiver on the Texans right now. I love him. Just got to get obviously over the cancer stuff, and it seems like he is good to go, and I'm excited about his potential. So that is it for us on the wide receivers. Did you like these rankings? Do you like how we do them? Let us know on Twitter. We appreciate it. Remember, you can follow us all on Twitter at Bogman Sports for myself, at Fitz_FF for Fitzy, and Alfredo at the Pretend GM on Twitter from Football Guys. Thank you so much, Alfredo, for coming on the show and talking some wide receivers with us. That is it. We will see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody.